Hello, friends and family. Hope you're all doing fantastic. Hope you had a beautiful week. Hope everything is going okay in spite of the difficulties that we face. Come to think of it, the difficulties sometimes put a little bit of an oomph into our step. It sort of pushes us to fight against the negative that is coming. So it's not always bad news. Welcome to the Aidoo show. The show that aims to inspire you, bring you joy, nudge you a little bit, and cause you to think about what you too can do for yourself as well as humanity, about what you can do to uplift humanity. This has been a beautiful, gentle week. I really loved the weather. It wasn't too hot. It was rainy. And it was kind of nice, very cool. So I'm grateful for that. I took a few pictures from my balcony garden, which I will proudly share with you. But on my journey this week, I came across something on Facebook, and I really loved it. And I thought I'd share it. I think it was somebody who was struggling and was having a conversation with God, which we all do in good and in bad times. I know I do that. I don't know about you. So I'm going to read it. It says, me, hello, God. And God says, hello, me, I'm falling apart. Can you put me back together? God, I'd rather not. Me, why? God, because you're not a puzzle. Me, what about all the pieces of my life that fall to the ground? God, leave them there for a while. They fell for a reason. Let them be there for a while. Then decide if you need to take any of those pieces back. Me, you don't understand. I'm breaking. God, no, you don't understand. You're transcending and evolving. What you feel are growing pains. You're getting rid of the things and people in your life that are holding you back. The pieces are not falling down. The pieces are being put in place. Relax, take a deep breath, and let those things you no longer need fall down. The pieces are being put in place. Stop clinging to pieces that are no longer for you. Let them fall. Let them go. Take a deep breath. Me. Once I start doing that, what will I have left? God. Only the best pieces of yourself. Me. But I'm afraid of change. God. I keep telling you, you're not changing, you're becoming. Me. Becoming who? God. Becoming who I created you to be. A person of light, love, charity, hope, courage, joy, mercy, grace, and compassion. I made you for so much more than those shallow pieces you decided to adorn yourself with, and that you cling to with so much greed and fear. Let those things fall off you. I love you. Don't change. Become. Don't change. Become. Become who I want you to be, who I created. I'm going to keep telling you this until you remember. Me. There goes another piece. God, yes, let it be like this. Me. So I'm not broken. God, no. But you're breaking that. Listen to this. God said, when I asked, so I'm not breaking? God, no. But you're breaking the darkness like dawn. It's a new day. Become who you really are. Ah, I thought that was so beautiful. Having this conversation with God and Him letting us know that He's with us. He has created us in a certain way. And the darkness and the struggle all come to shape us so that we become who He made us to be, His own creation. I enjoyed it. And I liked it also because my guest today is a woman of energy, a woman of hope, a woman of inspiration, a woman who understands that we must rise above our difficulties. It's no other than Rosita Hall, one of Canada's best motivational speakers, change maker, life coach, author, dancer. What can I say? Rosita, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Anna. I'm thrilled to be here with you today. You know that. I just love you.
I just love you too. How did you find that reading?
I thought it was very powerful. I thought it was very insightful, and it was. I'm sure that Facebook post helped a lot of people.
I'm sure it did, because I know it helped me. It
Yeah.
shed quite a bit of light onto my own struggles and the path
Yes.
and the journey that we're both on. That
Yes.
we're all heading to that place where God has created us to be. And so we have to go through the ups and downs and the struggle. So before we go any further, please tell us a bit about yourself, what you do. Yes.
Well, it's funny. I don't like talking about myself that much sometimes on camera. But anyways, I always start with the fact that I'm a mom because that's my greatest joy in life. My two amazing sons, Joshua and Christian, who light my world up every single day. My husband, same thing, who lights up my world every day. For 38 years, we've been together. And I
Wow.
love him to the moon and back. He's my best friend, my best buddy, and he provides me with a lot of love and light every day. I spent most of my career in the social work field, helping women and children who were violated and abused. And then the last, how many years? 20 years, I have been on the speaking and training circuit, helping people to live their best life. So that's pretty
Mhm.
much my story in a nutshell, Anna.
Awesome, awesome. So, you've given us, so we can say that you are blessed and you are taking your blessings and blessing the world with it. Am I right?
Yeah, and I think part of what you were talking about at the beginning when you started is that we all come into this world with a gift of some sort. And I
Yes.
don't think we have to look far for it. The gift is always there. It's been placed in our hearts and souls from the day that we were born. And I think that gift is that we are to use it and to use it in a powerful way. And I think when you look at the world as it is right now, especially coming out of COVID and the whole bit, I think the world needs a lot of love and light, and the world also needs all of our gifts and talents and abilities. So I think we have to find out where our light needs to be shone the brightest and to go into those places and make a difference.
Amen. I like that you mentioned that, because a lot of times I think many people wait for others to be the one that can bring the light, or to be the one who let their talents or their power shine. But it lies in all of us, I find. So we need to find the courage within ourselves to move
Mhm.
past the little living and to shine our light into the world. Would you agree with me?
Oh, I agree with you 100%. And one of the things I was going to say, Anna, is I think oftentimes, especially for people like you and I who do a lot of like motivational speaking and things like that, they have this sense that we only see like only the goodness in life, right? But the reality
Mm.
is this: we look out the same windows as everybody else does. We walk the same paths that everybody else does. So we know that it's not a beautiful world, that it's not a beautiful, pretty world all the time. But the
Mm-hmm.
reality is that we have figured out ways. You talked a little bit in that poem about brokenness. We've taken those broken pieces, because we've dealt with all kinds of things in our lives, but we've taken those broken pieces and we've picked them up, and they've been heavy sometimes. But we pick up those broken pieces and we build something new. And I think that's what we have to do in terms of being resilient during like any time in life, especially now during the pandemic and all that's been going on in the world. We have to take some of those broken pieces and really use them in a powerful way to not only change our lives, but more importantly, to change the lives of other people.
Wow. What can I say? The broken pieces.
Mhm.
I like that you mentioned that for those of us that get up with energy and we're always speaking positive and being inspiring and things like that, life isn't exactly all peaches.
No,
Like,
no, it's not all peaches, Annie, because we go through things too, and I think sometimes people have a hard time understanding that, especially for those of us who are out there shining our light as much as possible every single day. That we still have to go through stuff just like anybody else. We're not immune to what happens in life. As a matter of
mhm.
fact, during this pandemic, I lost two of my very good friends, almost best friends, I would say. Um,
Oh,
and so that was really hard. Now, it wasn't COVID related deaths, but nonetheless, they were deaths. And they were two women who I met when I initially moved to Hamilton many years ago. They were the first two women that I met in the community who took me under their wings, blessed me in beautiful ways, encouraged me, lifted me up, inspired me. And I miss them dearly,
go.
especially my dear friend Anita Isaac, who was like I don't even know how to describe her. She was like an angel in my life. People didn't know that, but we had a conversation almost every day. We would text each other, we'd message each other, we'd call each other, and share, stories with each other, what was going on in our lives. And actually, with beautiful Anita, I was actually on the phone with her having a conversation when she got sick and the phone dropped, and that was the last that I had a conversation with her.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was a rough time during the pandemic, but the reality is, I think we have to face our grief. We don't run from grief. Grief is reality. Grief is part of life. Like I started the grieving process when I was like 8 years old when I lost a brother. So, and it's just been an onward thing for me my whole life. So I know that grief is real. Grief is like, I mean, I'm sure you've heard that saying that grief is love with no place to go. For me,
Mm,
grief is just how we respond to all the things that happen in our lives, because grief
yeah.
is just the loss of a person. It's also, we think about the pandemic, there's been a loss of, we couldn't go to the weddings, loss of routines, loss of privacy,
Mhm.
loss of friendship. So there's a whole bunch of losses that you and I and the rest of the world have been facing. But my message is that people like Anna and I, we also grieve. Like, we have big smiles on our faces and we have good lives and we've learned how to pick up those broken pieces. But the reality is we grieve like everyone else, and it can be hectic sometimes.
It can be hectic, it can be draining, it can be because your body, I don't know, like it's like a natural gift where you wake up in the morning and God says, okay, today we're going to inspire 100 people. It doesn't matter how you're feeling, I'll take care of that. You go and do what you have to do, right? I don't
Yeah.
know about you, but sometimes I look at some video of me speaking and I'm like, oh, wow, is that how I was feeling? But but by the grace of God, we know that what we do inspires people. So I like that you talked about grief, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Sometimes we look on grief as a negative thing, right?
mhm, mhm.
But how do we begin to look at grief as a normal process, as part of the life? How do we begin to look at it? And how do we work grief so that when it comes, we're not so afraid? Because I know I get scared sometimes, very, very scared sometimes when I'm going into that process and I know something is not going right. This is not working. That is not working. I know I panic sometimes. How do we deal with this thing? How do we accept that it is part of life?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, Anna. For me, I do see grief and have always seen grief as a part of life. I've seen grief as this dance that I go to every single day, because I think the very fact that we're breathing reminds us that we also will die at some point, and that everything dies. I mean, anything you look at in nature, you go out and look and you see the seasons changing, things come and they go. So the reality is that death is grief is part of death, and death it's actually a part of all of us. I mean, all we have to do is look in the mirror and see that, we don't look the same as we did when we were 16, because things are
Right.
changing, things are shifting, things are transitioning. And that's called life. And that's called, the dying process. Really, when you think about it, I don't want to make it sound negative, but that's just the reality of it. We're not the same as we used to be yesterday. So
Yes.
I see it as part of life. But what grief does for me, and I know we'll get into the part around, the grieving process. But for me, grief reminds me to live. Like, it just says, you better get up and get going, girl, because life is short. You got to get going. But it also reminds me that you can't dance your way out of grief. Like, grief is a normal process. So you have
Oh,
to go
no,
through
you
the
can't,
process of grieving.
Rosita.
Yeah.
What did you just say? You're like, you can't dance your way out of grief.
No, you can't. You can't dance your way out of grief. Like, grief is real. And I think that sometimes what happens is when people lose someone, or we've gone through this process of the pandemic where there's been losses, we almost feel like we're not strong enough if we can't handle the grief, or we push people through the grief, or people want to talk about the grief and we go, yeah, okay, but come on, you're going to be okay. And the reality is sometimes people need to say, it sucks. And this doesn't feel good, and I'm grieving this loss, and this doesn't feel good. And you need to surround yourself with people who will allow you to do that, that allow you to say, this doesn't feel good today. Now, we don't want people being in the grief process so long that it starts to impact them in a negative way. I mean, you have to know when you need to seek out professional help and support. But the reality is, when we're going through any kind of grief, we have to realize that it's something that it's a process, but it's not linear. So there will be days where you wake up and you go, I got this. And the next day you go, I'm paralyzed. I can't move. And then there'll be points in your life where you think nothing, I feel like I'm okay. Nothing's, and then it can be 6 months down the road and you see a picture or something happen to you. You're like, oh my God, it's hit me again. So I think we
Yes.
just have to accept the reality that grief is a part of life. This is a part of life. And we can't avoid grief, because grief comes in many shapes, forms, and colors. In terms of, it could be the loss of a loved one, it could be loss of a pet, it could be losses that we're experiencing during this pandemic. There's so many different loss of a career, loss of finances, a divorce, anything. We grieve those processes. Anything that's changing or shifting in us, we grieve those processes. But we have to surround ourselves with, I think, the right people and support systems that will be brave enough and bold enough to swim with us in those bodies of water, sometimes where there's sharks and stuff. We need people that are going to dive deep with us. We need those deep dive friends. And by the way, I have a very special deep dive friend. Her name is Pamela Trace, and I love her dearly. She might be on this call today, I'm not sure, but I love her dearly. And she is my deep dive friend, because she and I can have conversations about anything and everything at any time of the day. I know I could call her if I had to call her at 3 a.m. in the morning. She's my deep dive friend. So you need that circle of good people around you when you need to get through the grieving process. And they're not going to push you and say, come on, you got to get over this. They're going to go, no, let's swim with this. Let's work with this. There'll be days where you're happy, days you're sad, days you feel good, but we have to work through it.
I really want to stress on what you're saying, that grief is okay. And you need to surround yourself with people who will not rush you through, who will not tell you to not talk about it, but who will take their time and listen to you. I come from a community where it's almost as if, just get over it. But I like that you're saying that we need to have those friends who listen to us, who will be there and simply be still so that we can talk. Because sometimes just the talking alone helps you breathe a little, and we thank your friend who is there for you through thick and thin, because you and I push out a lot of energy, but we have our down times when we need somebody to be there for us. So we have all these words that have become very common, that we use every day, simply just use it. And one of those words is hope. As discussed, I can say, oh, I hope, and we just simply gloss over it. But I want you and I to put a little emphasis on this word hope and what it does for us in our everyday lives. So give us something about this hope, this word hope, so that people can actually take it and look at it a little deeper for their own sake, and me for my sake, Rosita.
Well, Anna, you're so much fun. So for me, hope. I mean, there's many different definitions of hope, and I think even your listeners today, everybody will have their own definition of hope. There's a hope if people have a faith in something bigger than themselves, and there's other things that people hope for. But hope is really that you have an expectation of something becoming better than what it is in its present state. So you're hoping that something's better. You know, I'm sick, so I'm hoping that I get better. And I'm looking for this job, so I'm hoping that I get that. You know, your hope is just this expectation that something in your life changes, for the better. For me, that's what I think about when I think about hope.
Yeah. And then you sent me, I asked you for a quote or two, and you
Mm-hmm.
sent them. And I am like, all right, all right. Let me read it for
Mm-hmm.
people to get what we're talking about. Because sometimes we're so down, we don't even want to look at hope. We'll be like, yeah, whatever, then we brush it. And the thing you sent was, it said, if you only carry one thing throughout your entire life, let it be hope.
Mm-hmm.
Let it be hope that better things are ahead. Let it be hope that you can get through even the toughest times. Let it be hope that you are stronger than any challenges that come your way.
Mm-hmm.
Because during these times, hope will be the very thing that carries you through. And it's written by Nikki Banis.
Mm-hmm.
So, sometimes I imagine this hope when you're miserable. I'm like, why can't hope just carry me out of, like pick me up out
Mm-hmm.
of this misery and just transport me to another place? And then I
Mm-hmm.
smile at myself. Sometimes the other word I want us to um, talk about, which has become very, very central in my life, is the word courage.
Mm-hmm.
So this word courage, if we had to buy it with money, at least in my mind, if we had to use money to buy it, we'll not be able to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think many of us don't think we have that courage.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that? Because sometimes people, after I've spoken somewhere, or people will see me on Facebook and they're like, oh, you're so brave and this and that. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. But how do we let people understand that this word courage is a gift that's been given all of us? And how do we apply it to especially when we're most down, when we don't feel like anything is going well?
Hmm. Another good question, Anna. So for me, I think the reason why people sometimes don't feel as though they have the courage, which they oftentimes do have, is because they have what I call the comparison disease. They're so busy comparing themselves to other people. Like when you're saying, people are saying to you on Facebook, oh, I'm seeing what you're doing. I don't have. See, the thing is, if you figure out your authentic truth and you understand who you are and you understand your gifts and you understand your talents and you understand your abilities, that's where courage flows from. You have to be standing on a
Mm.
foundation of truth about who you are. And a lot of times we lose our courage because we're so busy watching and seeing what other people are doing instead of paying attention to what we're supposed to be doing. We all have a reason for being here. We all have a job to do every single day to spread some light into this world, but we can't do it and we won't have the courage to step up to the plate if I think I have to do it the way Anna's doing it, or I think I have to do it the way Pam's
Mhm.
doing it, or the way this person's doing it. But come with your best self. And you know what? It doesn't matter. Some people's light might shine brighter. Some people might speak with a roar, somebody with a meow. But the reality is, we all have that courage inside of us. Just take the first step. That's what I would say to people. Just take that first step.
Just take that first step, go within,
Mm-hmm.
take that first step. So, in taking that first step, I find that it is the other word that's holding us back from taking the first step: fear,
Mm-hmm.
right? Fear is what is holding us back from taking the first step. And there's this description of the word fear: false
Evidence appearing real.
Exactly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do we overcome that fear? Because maybe you've grown up and the message that you've received all your life is that you're not enough. You're not good enough. You cannot do this. Or why are you being so bold? And this and that. Maybe those are the messages you've heard all your life. Because I'm
Mm-hmm.
finding I come across a lot of people who will share their ideas with me. Oh, I have an idea for this and that. And I thought about you because you're the one that does so much. And I'm like, did you hear what you just said? You're the one that does so much. I'm already doing so much. So how about you? So help us figure out how to take all those fears and the negative voices that we've heard to take the first step.
And I think it goes back to what I was just previously saying. I always mention that my mom used to always say to me that all roads lead back to self. So anything that you're lacking, anything that you need, don't look out here for it, look in here for it. So I think what happens is that we still have to go back to our authentic core again. Because as soon as we step outside of that and we're looking for that external stuff, then we don't think we have what it takes. Then when we're looking at the external stuff and trying to find our strength from the external stuff, that's when we become less courageous. That's when we start to be more fearful because we're not tapping into our own resources. And we have these powerful, powerful resources. So if we stop looking out here and reaching out here, but reach within, everything we need is honestly there. And I can say that from my own personal experiences. I do a lot of soul searching often. I mean, I'm a very outgoing person and people know me as this high energy person, but I also will tell you that I'm a person that takes a lot of time for myself. Like I take a lot of me time, a lot of time of quietness where I'll go to my room, shut the door. I just need some quiet time for myself, for self-reflection, to have some conversations with my maker. But I think that if we just can start looking inside, instead of outside. You know, I was quoting this a piece of a poem, Anna, at another presentation that I was doing, and it was really about, it was called The Man in the Mirror. And so I changed it, of course, to The Woman in the Mirror because I'm a woman, and it's where it said king, I said queen. But part of that quote goes like this: when you get what you want in your struggle for self, and the world makes you queen for a day, just go to the mirror and look at that girl and see what she has to say. For it isn't your mother, your father, or spouse whose judgment upon you must pass. The woman whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back in the glass. And I read that poem from the time I was a kid. And I always remembered that. My mom said, all roads lead back to self. Anything that you want, you need courage, you need this, whatever you need, it's here. You got to spend time here. Get off of Facebook. Get off of Instagram. Stop looking at what other people are doing. Look at what you need to do because Anna can't lift my spirits. I got to lift my spirits. And so you have to figure out how to do that. And the only way that you'll do that is to come back home to your foundation, come back home to your core, come back home to your authenticity and have some conversations with yourself. And you are much stronger than you'll ever realize, but you won't know it as long as you're looking externally for confirmation. It's not going to come from other people.
But what if I'm saying to you, Rosita, you don't understand. I've been broken, I've been battered, I've been abused, I've been this. Rosita, you don't understand. I don't have it. What would Rosita say to me? Because I'm trying to come from a place where somebody is so broken. Like no matter what you're saying.
Yes.
All they feel is their fear and their hurt and their brokenness.
Yeah. And then that's when I think you have to rely on your circle. You have to have a circle because life is not a solo act. You need to have your dream team around you. And a lot of times people lack that dream team. So the first step is obviously your authentic core. And if you're struggling with that, it's probably because you don't have your dream team around you. But you need your dream team. So my dream team, for example, is obviously my husband and my two sons, my best friend, Pamela Trace, my sisters. Like you have to get those people around you who are going to be there no matter what, who are going to encourage you, who are going to lift you up, who are going to see things that possibly you don't see. And sometimes it's because you don't have the right people in your circle is the reason why you can't see the courage. You're hanging with the wrong team. You know what I mean? And sometimes and you hang with that team because they're so familiar. They're very, very familiar. And also sometimes you hang with that team because they feed you exactly what you want to hear. And sometimes you need somebody that's going to tell you the truth. See, my friend
Right.
Pamela, she tells me the truth. It hurts sometimes, but she tells me the truth, and I do the same for her. So we're not going to find ourselves in those places because we will shake each other like, no, no, no. And I think that's what happens sometimes. We don't have the right circle, and we hang on to that circle because it's so comfortable, and they tell us exactly what we want to hear, and it keeps us right where they probably want us to be.
Right. So you're saying that first and foremost, your own courage, your own happiness, your own well-being lies within yourself.
Yes. And now you
And
got to
if
stir that up, Anna. And now, in order to stir that up, you need some people around you that are going to help you stir that pot up. You got to stir it up because it's inside of you. Sometimes it just lays dormant because we're just singing the same song every day. We're hanging with the same people every day. We're giving ourselves the same information. We're feeding ourselves the same thing every single day. So we got to get out of that. And by the way, if it's somebody who's in an abusive relationship, I would say they need to get some additional support, like some professional support. I wouldn't say that they should follow my prescription if you're actually in an abusive relationship. That's a whole different story.
a whole different story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so one is go within yourself because it lies within you. The God who created you knows what he created you to be. And let's say life has done you wrong, thrown you here and thrown you there. So you don't have that strength. You need to surround yourself with the right people. You need to surround yourself with people who will call you out when you're whining too much. You need to be surrounded by people who will uplift you to your own self. And you talked about sometimes we find ourselves in relationships and friendships where, as difficult as it is on us, we stay because we're too comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're
Mm-hmm.
comfortable. We're sort of used to it. We already know how it's going to feel, so we don't. How does one work with that or without it? You know what?
And as you're saying that, I'm thinking, have you ever tried to put on a pair of jeans that just don't fit anymore? Like,
Yeah.
And you try and put those, and you're just doing everything you can because I'm going to make these. I'm doing that right now, actually, trying to make those babies fit. Like you're trying to make those jeans fit, and you put them on, and you know it's uncomfortable. You know it doesn't look good. You're in all kind of pain, but you're going. I'm wearing these. This is the same thing with friendships sometimes, or people. I'm not saying to eliminate your friends if these are people that you love and adore, but sometimes you have to figure out which group of friends are the ones that are going to be authentic, who are going to actually support me, encourage me, tell me the truth. That's the kind of people that you have to have around you, because otherwise you'll just stay stuck forever. Like you got to know when to hold them, when to fold them for a little bit. Some people say to me, but I can't get rid of my friends.
When to hold them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Walk away.
You got it, Anna. You got it. So I think it's that sometimes we make it more difficult than it has to be. Because the reality is, I remember a song when I was growing up, I never promised you a rose garden. Life is not going to always be a rose garden. Life is going to have its ups and its downs and its highs and its lows. And that's just the reality of life. So we have to equip ourselves, and we equip ourselves through the people that we hang around with. We also have to equip ourselves in terms of when we go through knowing that we are becoming more resilient. And I think one of the things that we have to learn to appreciate is resiliency, because you can't become resilient if you haven't gone through things. And so the more that we go through things, we become more resilient. And I think in terms of resiliency, you'll know when you've become resilient because you will have a good, I call it three things: your social capacity, your intellectual capacity, and your psychological capacity. So in terms of your social capacity, you become resilient because you have that social circle around you. It's the people you have around you. And then your intellectual capacity, you're always learning and you're always growing. You're finding things to read. You're finding ways to educate yourself. And then the psychological component is, who are you becoming? Because you have to pay attention to that all the time. When you're walking through life, when you're walking through grief, you will come at the end of it, which is, I don't even know where that is because it just goes on. You're not going to be the same person. And a lot of times people are expecting to be the same person. But when you've gone through stuff and you've become more resilient and you've gone through challenges, you're learning more about life. You're learning more about yourself. You're learning more about relationships, how to be better in relationships, which relationships to keep, which ones not to keep. It's just called life. And so I think when you can become resilient, more resilient as a result of all of this, it's good for you, it's good for your family, it's good for your friends, it's good for our communities.
All right. Oh my goodness. That was packed. So you gave these three thoughts: social, social.
Intellectual and psychological. I think that's part of becoming resilient, right? You have these capacities. Your social capacity is at a high. Your intellectual capacity is at a high. Your psychological capacity is at a high. You tune into those things every single day. So for me, I'm always onto my circle of friends. Connecting with them every single day. That's building my social capacity. My intellectual capacity. I'm a student. I love to learn. I'm always reading. I'm always researching. That's where I spend my time more these days. And then the psychological is, I talked about spending time with myself. I have to know who I'm becoming because I'm impacting other people. And I can't be a great support system to other people either if I don't even know who I'm becoming and who I am at any point in time. So you always have to. So the result of going through all these things in life is that you become more resilient. And so that's kind of a positive thing. And the other positive thing is that as you grow and become a better person, then you can add more value to your family, more value to your community, more value to your friends' lives.
So it is almost a necessity that you go through these things, the social, the intellectual, and the psychological, so that you can serve yourself, number one, in your most authentic way, stand
Yes.
tall to be able to say, I did that, this is me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can give to others, you can support others.
Yes.
This is almost a necessity. So resiliency, you've spoken about it, but just for it to go deeper in all of us, because sometimes we're so tired and we get bogged down by life and we can't do this and this is not going right. You tried to do this, but then it didn't go the way you wanted it to go. So go through the resiliency thing again so that anybody that is struggling right now can get it into their system so that they can pick themselves up and be able to reach out for help, even if it means just asking somebody for help.
Right. Yeah. So resiliency is, I guess, the easiest way to describe it is it's your bounce back. Something happens. I lost two friends. How do you bounce back? How do you get back up again? How do you get yourself back in? And the other important thing about resiliency, sort of that bounce back, is sometimes people think you're going to bounce back to your normal state, bounce back to where you were before the grief happened or the death happened. But you're usually bouncing back to something new, a newer you, a newer something else, not usually the same thing. And I think it's sometimes if you're not in touch with that reality, it's hard to kind of bounce back, if that's what you want to call it. Yeah. So it's just your ability to spring back, get back from I guess, to recover from any kind of grief or situation that you found yourself in that was stressful emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. And the best way to do that is to make sure that you have a good circle of people around you, which I kept emphasizing, which is the social capacity, making sure you are working on your intellectual capacity. So for example, for me, when I was going through grief, I was looking up things about grief. I wanted to understand grief better. I wanted to understand what I was going through better. I was looking up change. Let's talk about, educate yourself. And then the psychological capacity is always being in touch with who you are at any given moment, because it's going to impact other people.
So I would say that it's a good thing to always look within yourself. Look at yourself, look at your story, look at how you're living your life, so that with resiliency, with courage, with hope, all those things we've spoken about, you can now rise to the different person that is coming out of you. Because definitely when you went into that difficulty, you were at one level. And then you had to go through all those emotions and then pick up all these words we're talking about and then almost leap. Like I said, like the phoenix, you almost rise. Stand there. So what you're saying to us is that we shouldn't run away from grief.
No.
We should be resilient. We should learn about ourselves.
Yes.
We should learn about ourselves. We shouldn't be too busy, going with everybody without understanding who we are. Is that what you're saying to us?
That's exactly what I'm saying, Anna. You put it together so nicely. And the other thing you talked about stories. The other thing I would say when we're going through life, because I call grief everything. It's just life. And when we're going through life like that, I think we have to learn to master our stories when we talk
Mhm.
about overcoming. Because here's what happens sometimes. I'll just use this as an example. I remember talking to a friend one day, and she was so concerned about her health because she said, um, I can't remember the exact thing, but say my mom had, I'll say diabetes, right, or whatever, a heart problem, whatever. So my mom had that, so I'm going to get that. And I said, so hold on a second. Why are
Hold
you
it.
owning that? Like, why are you owning that? Like, what if we shift that story? Why don't we change that story? Because
Yes.
sometimes we lead with our stories, the stories that we make up in our head. Oh my God, I'm as guilty as anybody else. I remember in the middle of COVID, I had convinced myself I had COVID because I had a little bit of a sore throat. And then one day I was going, you are getting yourself so wound up about this. How about you master that story and you change that story and say, you know what?
Yeah.
I wonder if this is just a little tickle in my throat because of something I ate, or maybe it was the nuts that I ate or whatever. But we sometimes get ourselves in a negative place because we don't know how to master our stories. I remember
Mm.
one of the things I shared the other day with the group was, as an example, I'll use like a workplace example. Somebody, there's a bunch of you in the office and you have this project that's due Monday morning. And so you've all agreed that you're going to stay and get this thing done. So Monday morning you present it to your boss, right? But then all of a sudden, one of your coworkers gets up, grabs her keys at 4 o'clock, and she's gone. And you're like, whoa, where is she going? Like, I thought we were all in this together. My God, what
Yes.
a wonderful person. The nerve of her. How would and then now you've gone and told everybody about it. So the whole office is wound up when there's a project due. And then I would say, stop for a second. What if you master that story? What if you change that story? What if you go, I wonder if there was an emergency in her house. Oh, I wonder if she had
Mm.
this. Oh, I wonder if we should call to see if she's okay. You see, as soon as you shift your story, you shift your health, because whatever
Yes.
you start to believe, it
Thank
starts to
you.
impact your health. So when
Please
we're,
repeat that.
no matter what we're going through,
Repeat that. As soon as you shift your story, you
you
shift
shift
your
your health. You shift your health, because if I walk around going, oh my God, I feel so tired, your body goes, yep, tired, we're tired. And so, this is what happens. When you say, oh, I think I might get diabetes because my father had it, yep, you're probably going to get diabetes. I think that lady left the office because she's lazy. Well, then that's the story you're telling yourself. Then the disease process starts. That's why it's so important why I say you got to start from a place of truth about yourself and surround yourself with the right people who are going to say, no, 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 I don't think you should own that truth. Like, that's what I did with my friend that day. I go, whoa, whoa, wait a minute. Why are you owning that? You don't have to have diabetes. Like, why are you saying that? So I
wow.
think sometimes we put these stories in our head that are sometimes just not true. And then they start to impact our health. And when they start to impact our health, we can't show up in our fullness. And then we
Mm.
can't give in the way that we should give. In fact, it's absolutely draining. And I have really been practicing mastering my stories, because sometimes we just make these stories up in our head and we walk around like they're true and they're not.
Wow, 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 wow. That storytelling, the story you tell yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The story you tell yourself. You could tell yourself, I'm beautiful, I'm overcoming, I'm this and
Mm-hmm.
that. Or you can tell yourself, I'm fat. Like you said, I have diabetes, and
Yeah.
make it the song that you sing
Mm-hmm.
constantly. What you're
Mm-hmm.
saying is that none of that is going to benefit you. Rather, it will pull your health down. So hit it up on the positive side of
Yes,
life
you
and
got
keep
it.
the positive lane and keep going. So as we're going along every day and during this COVID time, a lot of people went through many struggles. We're still going through struggles with the condo building that collapsed in the US. We
Mm-hmm.
see the stress, the indigenous community, that is all these things that are happening now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're bombarded with these things. But how do we mourn and feel sad for those people without letting it become, because it has a way of impacting us already with COVID and all of us being shut down. How do we rise above that? Not that we don't feel the pain of others, but how do we sympathize, but at the same time live above, understanding that we only have so much time to live and make the best of it.
Mm-hmm. So I would say two things. And number one, grieve, like say, this sucks. This is horrible what happened to this Indigenous community. That's horrible what happened. And you need to talk it out and walk it out, whatever it is that you do. We can't just pretend that it's not happening. It's real,
Yes.
and it impacts all of us, what's happening to communities around the world, really. So we really do need to grieve the process. We really need to talk out loud how we feel about it. This doesn't feel good. This sucks. This is horrible. And then I also think it's important that if you feel so strongly about something, then take some action. I mean, what are the steps that you can do? Can you go into the Indigenous community? What can you do? What kind of impact can you have on these communities that are suffering? So that's
Yes.
number one. And number two, I think oftentimes, even though we're talking about today, people don't even realize that they are grieving. I call it the invisible backpack. So I think that sometimes we are carrying an invisible backpack and we're walking around and we're doing everything that we think we're supposed to be doing. We're going for our walks, we're doing our jogs, we're doing whatever. And then we come back and we go, there's something still doesn't feel right. It's because I think that we have had so much collective grief as a result of this pandemic. We're carrying so much and we've been locked inside, and maybe we haven't been communicating the way that we should with others, that we're carrying a big load, and that we have to, since we're carrying a collective grief, we have to collectively be there for each other. So we have to say, I mean, I think I even said to you, Anna, before you had invited me to this show, I said, oh, my Aunt God, and I'm glad you connected with me because you were on my list to connect with. I wanted to connect with you just to say, how are you doing? So I think that we have to reach out to our friends and our acquaintances and say, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Because we have to be there for each other, because I think that a lot of us are carrying a backpack full of all kinds of stuff. Not only was the pandemic happening, where we were having so many losses, physical losses of friends and family members, we were also experiencing so many other losses. And then just some of this, the everyday stuff that was happening in people's lives. Maybe people were going through divorce, separation, financial issues, kids coming home, whatever. It's a lot. It's huge. And we can't pretend that it's not existing, because guess what? The body keeps score. You're not fooling anybody, because, you know, when you make that next doctor's appointment, it's going to, your body's going to speak very loud.
Wow. So what I'm hearing is that we have to acknowledge that we have been saddled COVID, then our own personal lives, which has several facets to it that we're dealing with. And, you know, even spending so much time indoors with each other because we couldn't go out. That was another whole thing that created another whole thing. You know, you would think that we keep saying you have to be with each other, reach out to each other, talk to each other. But that aspect of COVID was a little hard on families. Kids were stuck doing classes on computers. All of a sudden, parents had to be teachers. All of a sudden, jobs were lost. So we all need to take a breath, just breathe, so that we can pick up and not be so grumpy. We can pick up and talk to each other and say, how are you doing? What's going on with you? I realized I wasn't seeing you much on Facebook. And I was like, no, I need to get Rosita back. I know what's going on here, but I'm not seeing her as much. You know, so that occurred to me, and I was like, I need to bring Rosita back so that we talk about how to keep it going. How do we keep it going? So give us a general thought about how do we keep it going in spite of struggle.
Yeah, I love it. You hadn't seen me on Facebook as much. So yeah, I do occasionally go on. But I had decided during the pandemic that initially what I did was I started posting some motivational messages to keep people going, because that's my thing. That's what I do. And then I got to a point where I said, now you need to take care of yourself. You've been taking care of other people, and that was good. You reached out to people, especially during the brunt of it all. And now what about you? You need to step back now. You need to lean back, and you need to take care of yourself. So I did sort of stop doing the social media stuff for a bit, because I wanted to take time for myself. And I got to tell you, Anna, it was heaven. Oh my God, absolutely. And it still is heaven, because you sometimes you forget, you're so busy teaching it that you forget about yourself. So I took some time for myself, and I'm continuing to take time for myself, as I'm going to have the rest of the summer to take some more time for myself. And I think that piece is key, is to sometimes, you know, technology is wonderful, but it can also sometimes invade our sense of who we are. And as soon as
Right.
you lose your sense of who you are because you're just looking for other people to confirm that for you, then it becomes a tough thing to rebound back from. We have
Mm-hmm.
to really be at peace with ourselves and understand ourselves and appreciate ourselves and love ourselves, even without someone else saying it to us. And
Mm.
when we reach that place, then it's so much easier to give that out to other people. So I think in terms of the topic today, Anna, when we're talking about hope and faith and courage, again, I would just repeat that I think it's so important that we recognize that grief is a process, and that we don't run away from it. Like a roller coaster ride, it's not linear. There'll be days when we feel good, days when we don't. The best thing that we can do for ourselves in terms of grief is to surround ourselves with the right people. Make sure we journey inward as much as possible, because our authentic power is where the giftedness comes from for us to utilize and support other people. In terms of our hope and our faith, it looks differently for everybody. Some people, for
Yes.
faith and hope, it's a higher being. Other people, it's just other things for them. So definition of hope and faith is different for other people. And then I think the piece around courage is, again, it's tied to authenticity. It's like be bold enough, be brave enough to step outside the lines, color outside the lines. Don't get caught up in the comparison disease, worrying about what other people are doing. Just go out there and live your best life. And probably the most powerful thing for me was just when I understand that life is short. It's very, very short, and you get today. Like, this is what you're guaranteed. These seconds right now that I'm with you, Anna, I'm trying to be as present as possible, because this moment I'll never get back again. And so, what are you doing in each moment of the day? Make it your best day. Because we're never guaranteed what's going to happen after this second. So just enjoy and appreciate every second that you have, and understand that life will constantly go up and down like this, because it's a roller coaster ride, because that's what it's called. It's called life, Life. And while the best thing that we can do for ourselves is prepare ourselves for that life every day, and how we prepare ourselves will look differently for everyone. For me, it's really about making sure I'm caring for myself deeply, that I'm appreciating that no matter what's going on in life, I have my circle of friends around me supporting me, that I got to ensure that I have some bounce back power, that I have that resiliency, the social, the psychological, the intellectual, and really just being brave enough and bold enough and having the audacity to show up every day, just being my best self. And that I don't know how to be anything else.
I love that. You see, now you brought up another word, having the audacity to be
Mm-hmm.
myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it takes guts.
It takes guts, especially for some of us whose spirit is so bubbly. Sometimes people are like, you need to tone it down. You
And you
need
go,
to.
no, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. No, you don't. You don't. And I know that's the thing. See, the thing is about life is that everybody has a certain amount of energy and a certain amount of glow, whatever it is they have. And you never want to kill somebody's spirit by telling them to tone it down. If it's too much for you, go to another room. But you don't tell another person to tune out because you can't handle the light. Like, if you can't handle the light, then go to a darker room. I'm sure you'll find more, a lot more darker rooms. But you never ever tell someone not to walk in their authentic truth. I mean, that's a way to kill people.
Oh my goodness. I like that. Say that again. You never tell someone, please, I want it to come from you.
Well, I'll say it nicer this time. I just say you never tell someone not to walk in their truth, because you're giving them a death sentence when you do that, because that just kills everything inside of a person when you tell them not to walk in their truth. I mean, if you're a bright person and you're full of light and you're full of energy, then you let that shine. Like, whenever it's possible, you let that shine. You don't just, cover yourself up because somebody else, it's too bright for them. If that breaks too light, if it's too bright for them, they must exit the room, I think.
Wow. I like the way you say it, where it's like, go to a darker room. It's nothing personal, but you have to be careful when you're shooting down.
Yes.
But this is a very good message, even if this is all people get out of this. But this has been, oh my goodness, this 1 hour has flown by like it's 5 minutes. But
Oh, my
a
goodness.
few comments popped up. Somebody said, inhale, exhale. somebody said you can only be your authentic self, right? So do you have a website that people can go to if they want to follow you? I want
Yes,
to put
yeah.
it in the chat.
It's rositahall.com.
That's simple.
Yeah, it's very,
Rosita,
very hall.com. Mm-hmm.
rositahall.com. Somebody just will have the audacity to be yourself. I love that.
That is
Pamela
my
Tracy.
that is my beautiful friend Pamela Trace. I'm so happy she's on the call because I'm telling
Awesome.
you, when you talk about really being able
Let me
to,
read this one. Whenever you shift your story, you shift your health. People are getting the message. I've learned about the psychology of being sick, and this is major. People are getting the message, Rosita. I'm loving it.
yes, that's good. So yeah, I was going to say with my friend Pamela Trace, what I love about her is that I don't have to, when I am going through something, she's the first person I think about. And number one, because she's a fantastic listener and she always gives you room to breathe. Like somebody talked about breathe, like just take a breath kind of thing. And so her listening and reassurance and guidance is unbelievable. When I lost one of my dear friends, like she was there. She's just a lovely human being. And I think every person on this planet needs a friend like Pamela Trace because she's awesome.
And Rosita, I am lucky to have you in my corner. Every
Yes.
time I think about inspiration, motivation, I think about you first. And so I'm never done with you. You know by now.
Well, of
that,
course, you and I have been buddies for a long time, Anna, for a very, very long, long, long time.
you know, and to be honest with you, when we talk about finding people whose energy matches yours, you're the go-to for me.
Oh yeah,
You
you're the
know,
go-to for me. You and my Pamela. Yeah, the energy. Yeah, the
like
energy. Yes, absolutely.
the
Absolutely.
energizer bunny going. So we have a few minutes left.
Yes.
What positive message can you give to those of us that are listening today so that we can rev up no matter what we're going through, no matter what we're doing, and shoot for the stars?
Well, I think I will go back to my original message, which was when you get what you want for your struggle for self, and the world makes you queen for a day, just go to the mirror and look at that girl and see what she has to say. For it isn't your mother, your father, or spouse whose judgment upon you must pass. The person whose judgment counts most in your life is the one staring back in the glass. So it's all about authentic truth. It's all about owning who you are. It's all about standing on a foundation of truth about who you are. Why? Because of life, Life. Life will bring you good things, bad things, indifferent things. There'll be like a roller coaster ride. We'll have good things, not so good things. But the reality is this: if you walk in your truth and you surround yourself with the right people, you will make it through. And if you find that that's not enough for you, then you can always seek out more professional resources. But for me, I've always found that if I could keep my circle around me, my close circle, if I could always walk, my audacity to walk in my truth every day and never sell out on who I am, because once you start to sell out on yourself, trust me, the disease process starts because you're not walking in your truth. God put you on this earth for a reason. We have talents, we have gifts, we have abilities, and we have to utilize them to the fullest. And the only way to do that is to walk in your truth and take incredibly good care of yourself, because self-care is also key in my life.
Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, that's my Rosita for you, coming to you packed with energy and all. So what can we say? At the end of the day, Rosita said we should have the audacity. So if you've never heard it from anybody, if nobody has said it to you, have the audacity to live your life. Like Obama's book said, the audacity of hope. And so, again, this is the Aidoo Show, aiming every weekend to bring you a conversation for the soul, something that goes deep within where nobody can touch. I leave you with peace, love, hope, and audacity to be who you want to be. Stay blessed. Rosita, always, always. Thank you so much
Thank you, and I love you.
For being the yin in my yang. Oh, I'm getting
Oh,
goosebumps.
Anna, you know I love you. Love you, my sister, my soul sister, my soul sister.
And my soul sister. Let's keep
So
doing.
Anna, you should reach out to Pamela Allen Tracy because she's got a message for you.
All right, hook me up after, and then
Yes.
we continue from there. We keep collecting the
Yes.
people who
Yes.
add to the power.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, ladies and gentlemen, stay ready because Rosita and I will hit you with something good. Have a good weekend. Have a good, blessed Saturday. Everything is open now. Go and get a haircut, manicure, pedicure, anything. Look good so that you can say to yourself, I did that. Stay blessed, be encouraged, be inspired with love. It's the Aidoo Show. Conversations for the soul. Love you more. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Are you looking for a TV platform to advertise your products? If so, you've come to the right place. We're proud to be the platform of your choice, and customer satisfaction is our #1 priority. Let our television platform help you advertise your product and services. No matter where your prospective clients are, we have the media resources to reach them. We offer the most affordable prices, and a trial will convince you. So, contact us now and find out why so many local customers come to us for all of their advertising needs. Contact us at 416-835-3133 or email us at dork2@gmail.com.
That TV.